So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being part of today's Daily Connections. This is Seneca Waugh with your Clear Next Step. And today's Daily Connections topic is around uncertainty. And this is an interesting topic that's near and dear to my heart. I do a lot of training on uncertainty management and understanding how people deal with uncertainty. And as we think about it, some of us are better with gray than others, right? Some of us are very comfy with the gray, some of us are less so. I know of folks who write in bold Sharpie and make plans for the weekend when it's already Friday night. They read the meeting invitation details while they're physically on their way to the meeting. They drive at least a few miles with that low tire pressure or fuel light on. And I know people who are really comfy with the gray. On the flip side, I also know people who are very uncomfortable with the gray, those who write their third drafts in still easy to erase pencil, those who schedule weekend plans or fun plans weeks or months in advance, those who carefully include every possible detail that you would want about a meeting in the invitation so that it's all right there at their fingertips, and they've never seen their fuel gauge below half on their car. There are different extremes, right? We've encountered, and everybody fits on a spectrum somewhere, right? You don't put people in boxes. But as we think about those of us who are more comfortable with the gray and those of us who are less comfortable with the gray, we've got a range. And we've got people who are in general more comfortable with uncertainty, and we've got in general people who are less comfortable with uncertainty. I think even with that being true, right now it is a unique time, and I think none of us, regardless of how comfy we are with the gray, I don't think any of us have ever uttered a statement like, oh, I love these uncertain times we're living in, right? That's not a thing that we do. We don't love the uncertainty. And so I think right now is a particularly uncertain time. And so what do we do about that, right? What do we do if we realize that we don't love it? We don't love the uncertainty about it. And I think one of the things that we can do is we can name it. And the idea of naming uncertainty is really, really helpful. Why? Why would it be good for you to name uncertainty? I think naming uncertainty gives us something to focus on, right? And giving it a border or a boundary, or giving our brain something to do other than to churn. So naming uncertainty can do that, provide a focus. I think it also eliminates or alleviates or maybe dispels some of that really, really powerful fear that exists from the unnamed, right? The Harry Potter series made a big deal of he who shall not be named, right? And the fear that comes from the perpetuating something that is not named. If we name it, we can fear it less. And so I think if we name our uncertainty right now, A, it'll give our brain something to focus on, and B, it'll help alleviate, I think, some of the fear. Okay, great. I'm sold, Seneca. Sounds good. Let's name it. How the heck do we do that? How do we do that? So I'm going to offer a couple of tips, tactical, practical things you can do right now to name your uncertainty. The first one I'm going to offer is defining the borders. So that's the tip. Define the borders of uncertainty, and let's give it boundaries. Let's not say these are uncertain times we're living in. Let's say right now this is uncertain, but there are things that are not, right? If you got someone in front of you who is churning in the uncertainty, yes, these are uncertain times, but there are some things that are absolutely certain. To my kids and my family, I love you. That's not going anywhere. Right? That's a certitude. That's not going to change. To employees and team members, our mission is to serve others. That's not going to change. That's not going anywhere. To friends and colleagues, maybe you can't say what the future looks like, but I care about you as a friend. I love working with you as a colleague. Today and tomorrow look pretty stable. I think part of the pain that comes from uncertainty is when we start to churn because we go, oh my gosh, maybe I know what today looks like, but I have no idea what tomorrow or the future is so uncertain. Okay. I get that. But let's put a boundary on it. Let's say, you know what? I know what the next 4 hours look like. I can get through this day. I can put boundaries on what's certain and what's uncertain. I think our second tip, so the first one is define borders, put the borders of uncertainty. The second tip is admitting that we don't know. I think admitting that we don't know can free us up from a lot of pressure. As a parent, as a caregiver, as a leader, as a friend, as the shoulder that someone else is crying on, there's this false expectation that we have to have it all figured out. Well, you're the one, you're the one who's in charge. You're the stoic one. You're the stable one. You're the leader. You've got this all figured out. And I think right now, if we allow ourselves to admit, I don't know, this is uncertain. I don't know how this plays out. Admitting that we don't know is kind of claiming some certitude, right? I'm certain that I don't know. I'm certain that I don't have it all figured out. I'm certain that I am not the one with the answers to the spread of this pandemic, or to the economic impact, or to where the future is. I am 100% sure. Here's what I'm certain of. I'm certain I don't have those answers. And if you can start by freeing yourself up with that certitude that you don't know, I think you can help take off some of that pressure, that false expectation that we're supposed to know. The third tip is admitting that things will change. So this is a little bit like that same kind of certitude. It's putting things are going to change. Things are going to change again. It's possible that things will get worse. It's possible that things will get better. But I assure you that what we're experiencing right now, today, this Thursday, the second day of April 2020, I assure you that it's not going to look like this all the time. Things will change, right? I'm certain that we'll get updates from our leaders and from our churches and from our employers and from our colleagues and from our customers. I am certain that things will change. That's another way to name the uncertainty, right? The uncertainty is, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, okay, here's something that I know is going to happen. I know it's going to change. And what does that free me up to do? That frees me up to prepare for change. That frees me up to be nimble. That frees me up to be a little bit more flexible, to be willing to to roll with it just a little bit. If I say, you know what, here's the thing I'm sure of, it's going to change. Then when the change happens, it doesn't put me into a tailspin. I think finding a future end date is another tip. So defining the borders of uncertainty, admitting that we don't know, acknowledging that things will change. Finding a future end date is my next tip. Find a future end date that can help us deal with the gray of today. Now, am I presupposing or imagining in any way that any one of us on this call or listening to this later or reading this later has any idea when this is over? Nope. I don't want to pretend that. But there are some end dates that we can talk about. So for example, maybe you were in a, excuse me, maybe you were planning to go on a trip. I have a teenager in my house right now who is really, there was a June trip scheduled to Europe with her school, and there is some uncertainty about this. Is she going to go? Is she not going to go? And there's been a fair amount of churning and a fair amount of uncertainty. Well, what I can tell you is if departure date is June 21st, then by June 21st, she's going to know, right? It's not going to be uncertain anymore by June 21st. Now, there were some things that changed pretty quickly at the beginning and the middle of March. And so there was another trip, a mission trip that she was scheduled to go on that honestly, less than 12 hours before departure was when that trip got canceled. It was the day before, but it was less than 12 hours before they were supposed to get on that plane. But by the moment that she was supposed to get on that plane, she knew whether she was going or not going. And I think if we can put some boundaries to it, if we can, by departure day, I will know for sure if I'm changing or not changing, or if I'm going or not going. Or maybe there's some other things that we can put on there that, maybe I know that our historical busy season with our organization, our historical busy season runs, we've got a peak season that runs right now, goes from about the end of spring break till about Memorial Day. Well, I know that Memorial Day will end that traditional peak season. I don't know. I don't know if we'll be out of this current environment by that point or not, but I know that at that point after Memorial Day, we'll be in a different season in our business, and we will have already a different way of responding to things, because we look at things differently in the summertime, and we have different tools and skills that we do. So putting a date on it, I think most of us can tolerate things for any period of time as long as we know when. And I think that uncertainty tip of putting an end date on it will help. If you can't find a date, at the very least right now, I think we can safely use someday. I think someday is a fair date at the moment. Even in the face of COVID-19, I am wildly confident that this will end someday. That someday we will not be sitting here having these same kinds of conversations because we will have found a new normal. And I can't tell you what that new normal looks like, but I can assure you that someday it will be different. Another tip that I would offer is that contingency planning. And we talked about this last time. Contingency planning, or last week. Contingency planning can help us be tactically prepared when you're naming the uncertainty. So I don't know if it's going to rain. I don't know if it's going to rain. Well, if it does rain, then I'll get wet. So I should carry an umbrella. I don't know if we're going to have enough money to make it through the next 16 weeks. I don't know. Okay. If we don't have enough money to make it through the next 16 weeks, then what are the implications and how will we deal with that? I don't know if there'll be any more toilet paper at the store. Okay. If we don't have enough, if there's no more toilet paper at the store, then what are the implications and how will we deal with that? I think when we stop and instead of saying, but I don't know, if we turn it into a contingency and we say, okay, so if it happens, if this, instead of just going, it's uncertain, okay, what is it you're worried about? What is the fear? What is the concern? What is the worst case? Maybe that allows us also to look at what is the best case. You know, what's the best thing that could happen? What's the good that can come out of that, and allow us to switch directions in that. So those are my ideas for this day. So contingency planning, use that tip for contingency planning. Consider an end date if you can put an end date on something. Acknowledge that things will change. Admit that you don't know, and define the borders where you can of the things that are certain and the things that are not certain. I think those are all some practical, tactical tips that will help us name uncertainty, which will help us stop churning and help us be able to be more productive.